Hey friends and family, it's James with Crawlers and Customs, and if this is your first time on the channel, welcome. Here we do product reviews, product development, and how-tos. This is going to be a little bit of a review on the Drift Art 2.6 EX, which we've been working on probably for the past few weeks. All right, stay tuned. We're going to get into it. All right, so up first, let's talk about the kit. So this is a Drift Art 2.6 EX. This is one of their latest offerings, and we're going to talk about three things now that we've built it. We're going to talk about the overall build quality, the adjustability, and then build difficulty, because that was a factor for me. So first, quality. Just look at this thing. The quality is through the roof. The machining is incredible. This is a fairly high-end kit, but we've got lots of billet parts, lots of CNC routed carbon fiber. This is their fully optioned kit. So this is the 2.6 EX, or basically their latest version with their highest end assortment of parts. So this is a rear-wheel drive drift car that's going to utilize a gyro and a brushless ESC, which is also censored. Now, obviously, we don't have all those electronics in place yet, but this is full independent suspension all the way around. It is butter smooth. Kind of see it bounce there a little bit. And I'm really impressed. That's all there is to say to it. This is a super, super nice kit. So let's move into the next segment, which we're going to talk about is adjustability. So you can see lots of bolts here. And at first, I was a little bit turned off by just how adjustable this was. But when we get into the body segment, we'll talk about why it's important. So this kit can be set up as a 124 or a 128 scale. I have this set up as a 124, utilizing 22 millimeter wheels. Now, these wheels do not come with the kit. The kit is just the chassis, and we've added a motor and servo at this point. So adjustability. You can adjust the track width, toe end, camber front and rear, caster up front, as well as track width. So you can basically dial this chassis into whatever body you want. Also, you'll see you can adjust wheelbase here. So you loosen these two bolts, slide this assembly, and you can shrink this down for 128 scale bodies or stretch it out for 124. I'm not at the limit of any of the adjustments, and this is set up pretty much perfectly for the 124 body that we'll take a look at in a minute. So that brings us into our third segment, which is difficulty. I've built a lot of kits. I'm over 40 years old, and I've built a ton of kits over the years. The manual is decent or even good, but the difficulty comes from the size of the hardware in my fingers. You can see my thumb and relative to this, rear section, and it's hard to hold some of these bolts. It's hard to even see them. So it took me some time. I took lots of breaks. I wear glasses. And so some of this hardware is super small. Even the hardware to hold the wheels on is just an M2 nut. And that's the largest hardware on this vehicle. So everything else is tiny. They do include lots of tools and things like sandpaper and files in the kit. So you can put this together with everything that comes in the box. But yeah, I wouldn't describe it as easy, and I wouldn't recommend this as your first kit. Stick to 110 scale at first. It's a little bit easier. The parts are larger and they're a little harder to mess up. It can be pretty easy to cross thread some of these parts, and it's super difficult to even hold them. Assembling these tie rods is challenging because, look at that. You can barely hold on to them. And there's some tips and tricks in the manual. Unfortunately, I didn't film a lot of this build because it's just as hard to build it as it is to film. It's so tiny, by the time you get your finger on something, you can't even see it. So you're kind of working by feel. So this kit definitely took me a few hours to put together. By the way, these are some printed items that I've been tweaking to allow the body to fit well. So difficulty is probably 8 or 9 out of 10. Not because the parts don't fit, but just because they're super hard to handle because they're so small. All right, so let's take a look at the body that we're going to be utilizing. So this is a Supra A90 with a wide body kit that I've added. Now this is a Tamiya kit that is a static model that I've robbed the body from and glued together. So we use the Tamiya cement to first glue the body together. And then I've added this wide body kit. And the reason I chose this one is because I wanted a little bit more track width. And I also like the look of it, even though it does come with a spoiler. I'm going to leave that off, and we're going to prime and paint this a nice pearl white. We'll put the glass in, we'll put our headlights and finish off some of the details. But I wanted to show underneath. So basically, all these pieces are in sections. So the nose, the main body, the left and right front fenders, the side skirts, the wide rear fenders, the rear bumper facade, and the spoiler. This all needs to be, I'm going to say glued together, but really we're using a cement that melts the two plastics together. And so it really turns this body into sort of one piece. I found that I really liked the ultra thin or extra thin cement. Basically, I held these parts on with my hands and also maybe some blue tape. And then I just I brushed on the ultra thin, and it would wick under the joints. Apply pressure for about 30 seconds, and you can move on to the next section. So I did that in small bits. And then also, might be a little hard to see here, I've sanded or chamfered these openings, and that will allow the suspension to compress up into the body while still having some track width. Obviously, you can have a really narrow wheel and it fit just nice or just easily, but I wanted to have that more flush look. So this is the A90 with the Fugu Garage wide body kit. Really high quality, and I like the way it looks. So I've gone through a few versions of printed brackets. And when I say a few, I mean a lot. But basically what I've been doing is just fine tuning by the millimeter these front and rear body mounts, which I've bolted to the chassis. And my idea is to not allow a ton of space between the body and the chassis. So when we do clip a wall or spin out with our friends on the drift track, I don't want to break this body. So I felt like supporting it would be the best idea. So basically this fits on like that. And eventually we'll split this in CAD, put some magnets in it, and this will be a magnetic fitment. But right now it's actually fitting pretty well. You can see underneath that I'm copying the profile up here, so the body doesn't have a lot of room to sort of flex in and break. It's going to be supported by the chassis. And we're also fine tuning, and this is where we're talking about the adjustability of this chassis. We're fine tuning this wheelbase to fit these wheel arches right. We're fine tuning the track width, and we're making sure that we have plenty of steering clearance, because being a drift car, you can see that this thing goes to extreme angles. And part of this chassis, one of the reasons it's pretty cool, is the Ackerman angle is adjustable with the servo angle. So this kit has every adjustment that you'd want. Let's see how that wheel tucks up into the body there. So that's our A90 Drift Art 2.6 EX build. One of my buddies has a really nice vinyl track, and that's one of the reasons that you might consider such a small drift car. You can drift these almost anywhere. And I love 1/10 scale. As you know, we work a lot on the F450s and hauler, but there aren't any drift tracks down here in Southeast Florida. So he has a vinyl track, and it's set up in his garage. And you can really work on the scale details on these and not have to worry about them getting tore up by running outside on rough pavement. They're small enough where you can basically put a track in your bedroom or your basement, or maybe even your dining room table if your wife lets you. So that's the idea behind this. I do like drift cars. I just don't have a place to drive my 10 scale. So this is what we're working on now. So stay tuned for some close-up shots of the body and chassis. All right, guys, stay tuned for the rest of the build. We'll be doing the electronics install and setup. And if you like this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Comment on what you think and what you'd like to see in the future. All right, guys, thanks. Have a good night.